Today is an exciting day for me because we're going to be looking forward to peak, or looking back at peak 2021. But to be honest, we call the last quarter of the year peak, but there are so many peaks throughout the year. We've got Valentine's Day coming up, Easter, Mother's Day, Amazon Prime Day. This year, we've got an extra special peak because we've got the Queen's Jubilee, which will be a 4-day weekend. We get an extra bank holiday. May bank holiday moves to early June, and we get 2 bank holidays in a row, plus the weekend. So there's going to be an additional peak this year. But that does make it hard for retailers. And the last year has had quite a dramatic impact on the retail industry, with the shift from almost everything had to go digital when the shops were closed. Consumers have adjusted their shopping habits. Have to admit, I've hardly been to a shop in almost 2 years now, not even grocery shopping. And this shift in consumer behaviour is changing how brands promote their products. So I'm delighted today to welcome an old Tambo friend back, Izabela from ChannelAdvisor, who are going to look at this changing digital marketing landscape and sharing tips on how to drive e-commerce success forward and basically future-proof your digital marketing strategy to make sure no matter what happens in the future that your retail operations are ready to go. So it's an exciting year coming up. Tambo Live's always exciting. And Izabela, thank you so much for coming back. It's always such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Chris, and happy to be here. This is my 4th webinar with Tambo. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. And same as you, Chris, I've barely been to a shop in the last 2 years. I've just become so comfortable with shopping online. And I do have some stats with how many consumers have become more comfortable and some more details around that. But thank you so much for the introduction. So today's topic is quite straightforward. We're looking at ways to future-proof the digital marketing strategies that we're implementing in this era of constant change. As Chris mentioned, I'm Izabela Catiru. I'm coming from ChannelAdvisor, where I'm a manager for the digital marketing team in EMEA. And I have been with ChannelAdvisor for 4 years. I have almost a decade of experience in marketing, especially in digital marketing. So I'm, again, excited to be here. Stoked to talk about this subject that it's near and dear to my heart. So before we jump into the presentation, I did want to take a few minutes to briefly introduce who ChannelAdvisor is and what we do, for those of you that are maybe joining us today and you're not familiar with who we are and what we do. So I do resonate with our mission to connect and optimize the world's commerce because we help both companies and consumers. We help consumers to find what they need in a safe and comfortable manner. And we help them save time that they can invest it somewhere else. And we also help companies to reach those consumers wherever they are. We have offices in multiple locations, and we provide that actually helps us to provide localized strategies and 24/7 support for our clients. So what do we do? To be a bit more specific, ChannelAdvisor helps brands and retailers with their e-commerce operations, and we help connect to those consumers across multiple channels, across every stage of their buying journey, all from a centralized platform. Cool. And we have been a trusted partner for both large and small brands and retailers across the world. With decades of e-commerce experience, we have gathered a large portfolio of clients over the years. Cool. So let's have a look at what we're going to cover today. We'll begin by having a look at the current landscape and emerging consumer behaviors over this past couple of years. And I will walk you through quite a few strategies for the short term. These are mainly focused on retail media and social commerce. We will then turn our attention to mid and long-term strategies. And I hope you're going to be inspired by some of these ideas that you can start working on now to be prepared for the future. We'll conclude with some key takeaways, and we'll have 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how much it takes us to go through the content, reserved at the end for questions. So feel free to send your questions as I'm going through the strategies. or anything that you might have had in mind when joining this session that maybe I don't get the chance to touch on in that much detail. Cool. So we have about 40 to 45 minutes to go through a lot of content. So let's get started. Let's start with the landscape overview. So COVID has had and will have a lasting influence with close to half of the consumers purchasing online more than before the pandemic. Next to the consumers shopping more online, the consumers have at their disposal more channels, meaning that our consumer journey is more varied than ever. In fact, 73% of consumers use multiple channels during their shopping journey. And majority of the shoppers describe themselves as channel agnostic, meaning that they don't care where they are shopping from as long as they're getting what they need in the time that they need with the price that they want or the best one that they can find. Cool. So where does it all begin, you might ask? Over the past couple of years, we have been regularly conducting consumer surveys or researching around consumer trends. And the latest one that we've conducted has uncovered that consumers turn to search engines to begin product research when they're in the market to buy a certain product, followed closely by Amazon. But Amazon leads with 44% when it comes to purchase intent as a starting point in the consumer journey. So as showcased by this, search engines and marketplaces account for more than 80% for both purchase and research as a starting point. So let's see some strategies for short term for some of these key channels for the consumer journey. Retail channels, such as marketplaces and retailers, as well as social channels. So let's start with the retail channels, and we will talk about these channels in the context of advertising, hence why we call it retail media. So why is retail media important? Next to the stats that we've seen a minute ago around being an important starting point for research and for purchase, these channels have seen an increase in popularity over the past few years, and it has been mainly driven by the pandemic. Nearly half of the consumers are shopping more on Amazon, and 27% are shopping more on other marketplaces compared to pre-pandemic. And brands know this, and these channels are an important step in the consumer journey. So it's no wonder that when you start selling on these channels, you find so much competition. On Amazon alone, there are about 400 million products. How can brands really stand out in such a crowded marketplace where consumers have such a wide variety of products at their disposal? How can they cut through the noise? And the answer many times is advertising. And Amazon has taken advantage of this high volume of consumers coming and researching and purchasing through their platform. And they've taken advantage of it by developing an ad platform. Right now, I think it is very hard, regardless of what you're searching on Amazon, whether it's pet food or you're searching for replacements for your filters for your kettle or whatever it is that you might be searching on Amazon, it's really hard not to engage with an ad. And ads go beyond the first free results that maybe we might be used to. They are further down the search results. There are many carousels on the product detail pages. So again, really hard not to engage with an ad when you're going on Amazon. And this is spreading around like other retailers. Amazon is no longer the only one or one of the very few. More and more retailers and marketplaces are developing and launching their own ad platforms. And as I was saying, this is spreading around the globe with more and more options to gain visibility on these channels. You could potentially say that they have started and they have copied Amazon, but I think imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? So do expect more and more retailers to develop their own like advertising platforms, which we are already seeing. So all of this is contributing to the rise of retail media. And this term, I think it has been around for a while, but maybe not as used. We have been using it as ChannelAdvisor for a while, as many of us thought that the industry is going to go there once we saw more and more marketplaces and more retailers starting to think and to develop their own advertising platform. This graph is US focused, but typically what we tend to see is that when something happens in the US, it usually quickly follows in the UK and then in the rest of Europe. So this graph actually shows the potential rise of retail media. Cool. So in order to gain visibility on this retail and marketplaces channels, a listing strategy, we believe it's no longer enough. Have an investment plan in the short term and explore different options for all the retail channels that you're selling on. Since the majority of the budget and attention might go to Amazon, have strategies to test some of these other channels where you might be able to gain more traction and more revenue with a smaller investment. And who knows how much these ad platforms are going to grow. So it will definitely be helpful to be there earlier on. Remember when Amazon had just launched their ad formats. Cool. Coming back to the recommendations. So this was number one. Since the majority of the budget does go to Amazon, I focus the rest of the strategies on for the retail media section on Amazon. But yeah, feel free to reach out. More than happy to discuss some of these other channels that have advertising platforms. Feel free to ask in the Q&A section. More than happy to touch on some of these other ones. Cool. So Amazon, as we were discussing, is a channel of research and a channel of purchase and is top of mind for consumers when they are actively looking to buy something. But it is also a source of inspiration. According to Amazon themselves, 68% of consumers use Amazon to window shop. And this is why my second recommendation, I will focus on how your brand is showcased on Amazon. One key action that you can take control of how your brand is showcased on Amazon next to A+ content and your product detail page is the Amazon stores. Next to having more control over how your brand is showcased, Amazon stores are actually a great tool to improve your organic ranking as well as the performance of your sponsored brand campaigns. Cool. Many of you joining us today might already have a store. And one thing that is important to mention to those of you on the call that have an Amazon store is that it's important to keep that store up to date. Amazon stores are not a set and forget. And next to changing the product that you're adding to the store and maybe removing the out-of-stock product, it is important or a good practice to regularly update your store pages. This gives an indication to Amazon that consumers will find the most up-to-date information, which is really important for Amazon, the relevancy of what their consumers are going to find on their channel. Moreover, keeping your store updated will influence your bottom line, driving more sales and a better engagement with the consumers. Cool. So brand stores can serve as an extension of your website, as an extension of what you already have, and you can be inspired by the structure of your website and bring it to your Amazon store. But one thing to keep in mind is that there are no filtering options that you can add to the Amazon store. So that means that you need to leverage the menus and in order to segment and to basically drive the consumers to the subcategories that you want them to reach. And you need to constantly curate the store catalog to identify what's the optimal collection, what's the optimal purchase path that the consumers will take on this, what's level 1, what's level 2, like how deep do you want to split your menu. One last recommendation here is to ensure that you are driving traffic using sponsored brands, as the only other way for your consumers to find your store is from the byline in the Amazon product detail pages. It's right above or under the product title that you're going to find the link to it. Oh, so this was one of the strategies that I've spent the most time on, as there is so much to say. I think I could do one single session, one single workshop on just the Amazon stores. They're not at the beginning, they're not that much, but at the same time, they're not that mature. I do recommend that if you don't have an Amazon store, to start, and especially if you have an Amazon store, to actually keep it up to date. It's not a set and forget. This will actually help you probably in the longer term when stores become more popular. Cool. That being said, let's move on to the third strategy for the short term, and let's talk about placements. In my career, I have run a lot of assessments on potential clients that are running Amazon advertising. And I've noticed that placements are usually overlooked or can be a huge blind spot. Placements are a great component to fine-tune your performance on Amazon. And you are letting the system know how aggressive you want to be depending on where your ad is showing. And do not make the mistake to proactively adjust the bids, like, oh, I'm sure that top of the search is going to work for me, or that I want to show more on the product detail pages or the rest of the search. I've had clients for which the top of search worked for certain categories, but it didn't work for other categories. So it is important to adjust your placements according to the data that you're seeing, not to what you're thinking that your placements might work best, and to adjust those bids on a regular basis. Again, not a set and forget type of function here. Cool. Moving on to number 4, invest in automation in general when it comes to Amazon advertising. That's my advice. But if you're limited or you need to prioritize your investment in automation, because unfortunately the Amazon advertising platform doesn't have that much automation yet. Maybe the automation that we've been spoiled on other channels with. But if you are to start somewhere and to prioritize, I would recommend to start with automating your ad management. I would say this is particularly useful if you manage a big product catalog. This automation should help you automatically pause, add, unpause products based on the criteria that you set. This criteria can be around performance, so depending on how the various products are performing, or it can be related to stock. I think if you are going about ad management manually, chances are that you're missing on sales opportunities with products that are coming back in stock that you are not currently advertising, or new products to the stock that you are not advertising. But also you can affect your own seller rank, right, on some of the products that are close to getting out of stock, but you're yet to replan, and then you're advertising and you're driving that product to become out of stock. So ad management is super important, and it can help you overall, not just with being proactive with your campaigns. Cool. But the reason why automation of your ad management is so important is because the bigger the catalog is, the more campaigns you will need to have in order to drive better budget allocation, priority assignment, optimize your bidding, and efficiently automate other aspects of the campaigns. And the more campaigns you have, the more complex the ongoing management becomes. And the more tempted you might end up being to minimize the number of the campaigns in order to save time. But this is how it should be, right? Like if we look at this image, I try to make it simple. When you are managing advertising, especially on a channel such as Amazon advertising, it is imperative to have an account structure that it's segmented on goals. So what you want to achieve, protect my brand, drive new consumers with my non-brand, take a piece of the pie of the competitors, and so on and so forth, right? The intent of the consumers is this like more of a top of funnel, bottom of the funnel type of intent that I'm having here. And then ultimately performance, right? So you want to invest in the components that do work, and you want to minimize the investment in the components that do not work. So account structure is vital, I would say, if you look at if you look at your performance on Amazon advertising, and automating the ad management aspect is going to save you a lot of headache. Cool. The last strategy for retail media is how to win against competitors on Amazon. First thing that you need to have in mind is that your competitors might not be who you think they are. The competitors depend on the channel, and you need to know that on Amazon, you're going to face a lot of non-branded products at pretty competitive prices, if I might add. Cool. So when you target competitors on Amazon, please keep in mind 3 things. First one, when targeting competitors, choose the products that differentiate you. So don't go with your full catalog. I've seen this with many potential clients of ChannelAdvisor, going after competitors with all of their products. Be smart about it. Select the ones that put you at an advantage compared to your competitors. Second one, keep your competitors' campaigns separate and do not add competitor targets to your branded and non-branded campaigns. Keep them in their own dedicated campaigns. And this might seem like a no-brainer, but I've seen it so many times that I do want to call it out. Lastly, do not add all of your competitors in one campaign. Work with portfolios, and this actually enables you to have a curated product selection according to the competitor. You might go after a certain competitor that has worse reviews than you, so then you're going with your best review products. You might go after a competitor that has a similar price point, but you are actually a bit cheaper than your competitor. So splitting your competitor campaigns actually enables you to be a lot more tailored, and it enables performance. Cool. So let's move on to enough retail media. Let's move on to social commerce and discuss about what strategies you can adopt to be successful in the short term. So social media has been part of our life for quite a while now. And with the pandemic, I think we've only accelerated the consumption of it. I know that I'm guilty of spending more time on social channels. I think many joining the call today are doing the same thing. With us spending more time on these platforms and being able to shop, it is no wonder that social media has become a key research channel for younger audiences. And you might think like, yeah, for key audiences, like younger audiences, this was the case before the pandemic. But what we've actually seen is that the social usage for action is on the rise for all age groups. Sorry, not ad groups. This is the advertiser in me. Cool. So for all age groups, we've seen a rise in action usage. If we compare to the overall numbers pre-pandemic and early pandemic, there is a significant difference. There are plenty of ChannelAdvisor materials around this that you can search on our blog and see in our webinars. I'm not going to spend too much time. Bottom line is that the consumers are making more actions via social channels. Cool. What we're actually seeing is that there is a key trend to watch. And that is social commerce. We have seen an increase in social commerce in countries such as China, but not quite the same level in the West. Part of that is that while social continues to be that key influential channel on making us purchase or discovering new products, most of the transactions, especially in this country, in the UK, are taking place off platform on the brand's or the retailer's website. So when you hear about social commerce, oftentimes what we mean is social media advertising. Cool. To conclude why social commerce is on the rise and why it is important to use, I wanted to use this slide. This is a graphic from Facebook. At some point I was present in one of their webinars, and I used this even pre-pandemic to explain the new types of shopping that were emerging with the digital era. These types of shopping have been especially popular during the pandemic when we couldn't go in store, or we didn't want to risk it, or we just became comfortable with shopping online a lot more. Social media and Facebook, and I think Instagram particularly, are uniquely positioned to enable their users to use any of these ad types, any of these new types of shopping experiences. So serendipitous shopping. I'm scrolling through my feed and I discover one product that I like. Or I'm window shopping. I'm going into the Facebook store or the Instagram store or the Facebook page or the Instagram page of the brand that I'm looking for to see what products they have and how I can use them and how I can introduce them in my lifestyle, and so on. So as advertisers, what we need to do is we need to do the best job possible to engage our potential and existing client base across all of these types of shopping on social channels. So when we're building strategies to future-proof our e-commerce business for social media channels, please keep in mind 4 key areas: optimize content and product data, consistently refining your targeting, investing in automation, and ensuring your product selection is the best for the channel you are using. Meaning that your products are visually attractive, that you are driving a lot of sales, and they are typically maybe your entry point products that the consumers do buy. Cool. So today I don't have a lot of time to focus on all of these four areas, but I will focus on some key aspects from some of these areas. Happy to discuss more, so feel free to reach out to our virtual stand at TameBay. So let's start with the audience targeting. It is important to know who your target audience is when choosing the channels to approach. This will dictate your investment, the creatives you will need, and so on. So it's a very important first step, and I recommend to do that across all of the channels and see how big your audiences are. And one last thing to mention here is to not underestimate the power of newer channels such as TikTok, where a lot of Gen Zs are researching and purchasing products. So it might be that, I know, me as a millennial or someone else might not be as interested in purchasing through TikTok, but there are other audiences that are definitely in market. Cool. Moving on to creative management, this is my second recommendation on the social channels. So next to choosing that right channel and knowing your audience, make sure that you are reaching them with the right message and creatives. One recommendation is to avoid changing your creatives during high traffic to ensure that you are not making anything go wrong. I know something goes disapproved, or the ad type doesn't have the time to actually gather history. And one last thing to mention here is to constantly refresh your creatives to avoid burnout. If your ad has been seen, I don't know, at least a few times by certain consumers, even the ad platform itself is going to stop delivering your ads to those consumers. So depending on your budget, depending on your audience size, that should dictate how often you should change your creatives. Cool. The third and the last strategies for social commerce is probably the strategy that is often overlooked, and it is key. Do not use your Google Shopping feed to pour your social media ads. Have a dedicated feed. Use a tailored optimization strategy for each channel and for each product. I will be touching on the product data aspect in the upcoming slides in a more practical manner, but do keep this in mind. Product data is really important for certain ad formats on social channels. Cool. So this concludes the short-term strategies I've had to present, and we're now ready to move on to the mid-term ones. I won't have as many as for the short-term ones, but I will try to keep it to the most important ones. Cool. So as an advertiser, you might notice that more and more like channels such as Google are adopting the black box approach, we call it, to some of their more recent ad types or campaign formats. So what do I mean by black box approach? Well, you have an input, which is usually minimal, and you have less control over how that input is actually used. And usually you see an output which is not as granular as we used to be. So this black box approach is driven by machine learning, and it is a way for us to free up time, but it can lead to inflation of the cost per result and not drive the result that we are expecting if the input is not optimal. Cool. So personally, I think this is where the industry is headed. Advertisers having less input and less control over where and how their ads are being shown. And the sooner we jump on some of these ad formats to test them out and see how they work for us, the more control we're going to have on the long term. A prime example of such a campaign is Google Smart Shopping. They've in recent years, they've also launched Smart Search, and I don't think it's going to stop there. Smart shopping has been around for a few years, but I still find that it's hard in the industry to understand what are the levers that you can pull in order to be more successful with your shopping campaigns. It is a change in like mind shift from us having control and seeing absolutely everything and controlling all of these data points to just feeding the system product data and budget, and then the system does the magic and we just get to see some results, maybe not as granular as we were used to. Cool. So let's focus on the things that you can do on the input side in order to improve. First one is product data. That is super important. This is basically how the machine learning is going to work in your favor. The more relevant your product data is, the more they will match up to the right intent of the consumer. Cool. One other thing to mention here is that segmenting your campaigns based on key parameters is key. Make sure that you're looking at category, at price, and also the one in the middle that you're seeing here is historical data. So maybe historical data around the sales. Don't split your products just by category, or worse, have one smart shopping campaign with all of your products. Look at making your account structure more granular. This enables you to invest according to best-selling products from X category or Y category. So it's definitely a lot more useful than just having everything under one roof. Cool. Moving on to the product data, I did want to jump and be a bit more specific about the product data out of these three. When you advertise or sell a product through multiple channels, what you'll soon realize is that while all of them are asking for a title, for a description, for image, and so on and so forth. The truth is that each channel will require those data points to be tailored to them. Moreover, what makes a product stand out on one channel is not necessarily what it will make it stand out on another channel. So, as I recommended for the social channels, next to having that tailored optimization strategy to your product data, I have one more recommendation. Stop thinking of your product data in terms of required and optional, and look at it in terms of what it impacts. I tend to split them into discoverability / visibility, meaning making your ads show up and stand up, and performance. These are data points that I know, for example, showcasing your price drop might drive more consumers to purchase into your website. But what will actually make your ad show up is the title or the description or the product tags or whatever else that it is that triggers the ads to show on that particular channel. Cool. Moving on, and I hope this was helpful for you guys over the call today. One other area to keep in mind for the midterm is video advertising. Attribution reports are going to enable you to see that video action campaigns on YouTube impact other channels on Google, such as search. This means that you can better understand how your viewers are jumping between search and YouTube before they decide to convert. In recent years, Google has launched YouTube TrueView for Action as a direct response solution to make your YouTube ads more actionable and to drive more conversions with customizable call to actions and buttons and headlines, so making them more of a sales ad type rather than the branding ones that we were used to in the past. So it is important to understand how your viewers jump between search and YouTube before they decide to convert. If you're already running search campaigns, video, I think it's a great addition to add to that mix. According to a study that Google conducted a while back, the ad impact is supercharged when people are exposed to both. And when we say supercharged, we mean driving more sales, uplifting, recalling the brand, and so on and so forth, when you have videos and ads. Ads on video and search compared to like search alone. Cool. Expanding your media strategy to include the video is an easy way for viewers to remember you and your brand and to take action. And speaking about video advertising, I think TikTok is also a great channel, but that's another topic for another time to jump into more detail. I've already mentioned TikTok in the social media action section, sorry. Moving on to the strategies for the long term, and this is my last section, and I will only touch on one, augmented reality advertising, or AR. I think this is an exciting time to be an advertiser, right? Like probably well before like my career started is when we were at a tipping point as we are right now. I would say if you haven't started brainstorming with your team about how could your brand or your product stand out in such a different reality, and how you could potentially make consumers purchase from you, I think it is the time. Take the time and brainstorm, and maybe out of those 99 or 100 ideas that you come with, one might actually be the one that will help you once this becomes a further reality. Moreover, test it yourself. Don't be a late adopter when it comes to this, especially if you're a marketer. maybe if some of your friends have AR headsets, or you have the possibility to buy and test one, this is a great time when we know what's coming, right? So we have the opportunity to prepare for it. Cool. This was everything. I'm gonna move to key takeaways, right? So let's go through the key takeaways, and then we're gonna go through some of the questions. I've seen quite a few coming through the chat, so I'm happy that we have some to answer. And of course, I'm sure Chris is gonna have some extra questions for me. So let's move on to the key takeaways. It was quite a bit of information that I threw at you, and I hope that you took some notes, and you are leaving this session with at least 1 or 2 action points that you can implement for your own company. But if you are to leave this session and not remember anything other than one thing, I think is that retail media and social commerce are on the rise. And that if you're not doing enough about it, you might end up missing out on a huge opportunity to grow your revenue and your brand. So this is one thing that I would say it's important to leave this session with. All the other like technical aspects of it, sure, some of them might fit your company, some of them might not fit your company, but more than happy for us to have a conversation. So feel free to reach out to us after this session. Cool. So this was everything that I had to present today. I hope you found, again, at least one useful thing that you're living with from this session that you can use in your day-to-day operations. Looking forward for the questions. And on behalf of myself and ChannelAdvisor, thank you so much for listening and tuning in so far.
Izabela, thank you so much. That was an absolute deluge of information. But the good news is, if you've been watching and you missed anything, don't forget these sessions are all being recorded, so you can watch on demand in a couple of days' time after the event. But Izabela, if you don't mind, I'd like to dive straight into some questions. And the first one's an interesting one, which is, do ads or sponsored listings work better on certain marketplaces than others? And I'd like to just expand on that question as well. Do ads work better on Amazon.com than they do on Amazon.co.uk or Amazon Germany? Are there different formats of adverts that work better on different sites, or have you not seen any change at all?
So that is quite a big question, and I think if I were to give an umbrella answer and then dig in a bit more in some of the specifics. So the umbrella answer is that it all depends on your category and your listings. Advertising alone, so you might have the biggest budget of advertising for your Amazon account, right? But your listings are in a poor shape. You're not going to perform, right? Maybe you have better listings on, I don't know, Zalando, and you're investing a small budget there, but things are performing a lot better. So advertising on its own can't stand without like having proper content for your listings. And it all depends on the category that you're selling, how known your brand is, how your USPs compare to your competitors on that particular market or channel. We do tend to see higher volumes in Germany and UK, generally on marketplaces, followed by France and then Spain, Italy. Of course, the volumes are going to be dependent on the e-commerce adoption, on the popularity of that channel. So I know probably eBay UK advertising is a bit bigger than advertising in Germany at the moment, or it's bigger in the US compared to the UK. It all depends, I would say. There is no particular answer. Plus, depending on the ad type that you're adopting, so I'm thinking here specifically about eBay, you can pay per conversion, so per order that you're getting, or you can pay per click. Ultimately, it's all dependent on your goals. Do you want to drive more traffic to your listings and use like a pay-per-click strategy and have more control over your conversions? Or do you want to use the safer side where you don't need to invest as much effort to optimize and use a cost per order? Quite a lot of questions, and I hope I answered it. You can't say, I think you have to look at volume. Definitely Amazon has the biggest volume, right? When it comes to advertising, UK and Germany have a high volume, but we do have clients where, their brand is more established in Italy, and Italy is driving more traffic than Germany and the UK, right? So I guess it all depends. I would say until, just like I said in my first slide, in my first recommendation, test out the various channels and see what works for you. You might think Amazon works for you, but then you realize like eBay advertising actually actually works really well for you. So why not invest more budget there? But by pigeonholing yourself in one channel because you've heard it on a webinar that channel is magic and it's going to work, probably is not going to do you wonders in the longer term.
Yeah. And I think one of the most interesting things you said is what we're told time and time again, which is optimize your listings. There's no point promoting something that isn't good enough to stand up in the first place. And definitely conversion rates are going to impact how often your ad gets showed if it doesn't convert. Now, we've got another interesting question. This one kind of puzzles me a little bit. Should we have an Amazon store for each of our departments, e.g. menswear, women's wear, being two separate stores? Because as far as I'm aware, you can only have one Amazon store per brand or per user.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it's like on the high street, we used to have sort of Topshop had a whole load of different brand names. Should they trade all under one umbrella Amazon account, or should, if you've got different brand subsections, should they each have their own Amazon account?
Yeah, so I guess it all depends on the agreement with Amazon and how the brand was registered, right? If they registered Topshop or if they registered the sub-brands as different brands. So far, like, I have clients that sell on Amazon, they have sub-brands, and some of the sub-brands might actually be better known than like the top brand, the umbrella brand. And they use the same Amazon store. I think it all boils down to how you curate your store, how do you make your homepage, and how do you drive your consumer, right? So you don't have filters on the Amazon store. It's exactly what I was saying during the training. So the way that you structure your menu, your first page is really important, and it's the first step. So I'm going to land on that page or whatever landing page that you're sending me from your sponsored brands. Think about what are the next pages that are deeper that you want your consumers to go on in order to find the products that they're interested in. I would say don't put too many steps in there, like don't go way too granular. And in order for me to find the trousers, I need to take 5 clicks, but make it easier and control it that way. Again, in terms of like how many stores you can have, I think it's all boiling down to like how many brands you have registered. I've just like you said, Chris, I only know that you can have one store as a brand, but I might be mistaken and I might have not seen it all.
And then an interesting question, where can I expect the best return on investment? Social spend or ads on site?
By ads on site, I assume it's like the retail media portion.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're meaning like ads
yeah.
on Amazon, etc. Or should they be spending on social or ads on Amazon, eBay, Google, or should they be spending on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah, so I think both retail channels and social channels have become really good at covering the full funnel, right? So in the past, if you wanted brand awareness, let's do some social media. If I wanted actual sales, let's do some search advertising, either on Amazon or on Google or whatever it was. But now with all of the ad formats that we're seeing in the market from these ad channels, what we're actually noticing is that they're covering the full spectrum. So I think it all boils down to where you're investing your money, right? Is it more in top of funnel activities such as Amazon DSP or really general searches on Amazon? Or are you, and then you can have a worse ROI than your social channels where you're remarketing, going for lookalike audiences, right? So again, it all depends where you're focusing on your investment or on the various stage within the funnel. Overall, it's harder now to quantify the social media like return due to the attribution issues that we've seen. Conversion API on Facebook does help, but it's ultimately we are not seeing the full picture. So I think until maybe if you want to take the risk to pause your social advertising and see what impact it has, you won't necessarily see the full picture. But all in all, I think social media is way past the branding, paradigm that it used to be put into, and now it's also one of the converting channels.
Yeah, no, I do remember when sort of Facebook advertising was Coca-Cola spending a huge amount of money just on the name Coca-Cola, and it was just a branding exercise, but now it definitely is a conversion tool. But how do I tell for my business when the right time to jump into social ads is? I know there's so many variables, like even if I'm selling fashion, if I'm targeting people sort of my sort of age, I'm probably not on TikTok and probably don't use social as much as maybe a 16, 17, 18-year-old does. So I know it's kind of tailored for the product set, but how do I tell when the right time is to take it seriously as opposed to something that I should be monitoring and thinking of in the future?
I guess the time is now, if you ask me, right? And probably it was like even a few months back. And through our surveys, what we've uncovered is that across all age ad groups, we're seeing more action being driven by social channels, meaning that the consumers, they discovered the products, or like social was an influence in them purchasing those products. And actually, the audiences that have seen the highest increase are like the 40-plus-year-olds during the pandemic. And if you are to look at it, it's a clear, not a clear separation. You do have various audiences, but in different volumes, right? Like maybe Instagram is more the millennial go-to channel. Maybe Facebook, it's more, I don't know, Gen X and above. Maybe TikTok is more, but you do have these various audiences on the channels. You do have Gen X on TikTok. You do have Gen X on Instagram. It's not a rule. And with the targeting options that you have, you can actually just reach those consumers. You don't necessarily, it's almost like you don't even touch the other consumers that are not in the market for you. I hope that answered the question. I think social media is no longer a channel that younger audiences they use for like product discovery or interact with. I have a mom at home that's like always on Facebook and started TikTok recently. So,
talking of Facebook, they kind of invented the term Metaverse a couple of months back. But is the Metaverse relevant if our target market is a 35 to 55-year-old? Are these people going to be people my age, basically? Am I going to be running around with a 3D headset in a couple of months' time or a couple of years' time?
I think the question is, did you imagine yourself when social media started that you're going to spend time on social media? I think it's this snowball effect. The early adopters go on that particular channel or use that particular device, and then you want to spend time with them, and more people want to spend time. And it's like this, again, snowball effect where more and more people are joining. Maybe in 5 years' time, now you don't imagine yourself joining there, but you might have grandkids that are interested at some point in like 10, 15 years' time to be there. And you might want to spend time with them because they're far away and it's your way to interact with them. Or it's driven by your workplace. Your workplace might adopt the metaverse as they were showing in their launch video of driving meetings through the metaverse. I am personally super curious how this is going to pan out, and I'm in the market for testing it out for work, for fun, just to see how it. And I'm close to that like bracket age, so not that young anymore, and I'm still up to adopt it.
I have to admit, I've made mistakes like this before. When eBay first introduced their mobile app, I thought, who's going to go shopping on a tiny little mobile screen like this? I thought, this is never going to catch on. And of course, how wrong was I? I use my mobile all the time for shopping nowadays.
You're a 100 consumer
mobile,
now.
I do on desktop. And I think it's the same with social media, that you can look at it and think, who on earth's ever going to use that? And if you don't start engaging now, you're definitely going to miss the ride for the future.
And Chris, I'm embarrassed to recognize a similar thing. Back in 2013, I was in uni and I used to scroll my Facebook feed and I was like, who watches videos? Like, how are videos? Like, no, videos are not going to be important. Well, wasn't I proven wrong in 2020?
Yeah. Now, someone's got an interesting one. They're saying they're considering the idea of building their own marketplace. And I don't know if this is a standalone marketplace they're thinking of, or whether it's a brand that's going to turn their brand site into a marketplace. But they're asking what sort of ad inventory should they make available?
So on transforming your website into a marketplace, I have to admit that this is not necessarily my area of specialty. And I do know that we have a partner, Miracle, that we work with for transforming your site into a marketplace. And they are able to support you with that. And then connect to ChannelAdvisor. In terms of what ad inventory to make available, I think start small. Don't overwhelm your consumers, the ones that are visiting the website, with ads. Don't make them feel like the ads are way too invasive, right? Like, think about Amazon at the beginning. The Amazon ads are now so prevalent and big, and even eBay has done the same thing. But think of where they started as ad inventory. It was a small portion of their site.
Fantastic. And the good news is, Miracle were actually presenting at Tame Bay Live yesterday. So if you want to find out more, go and visit their showcase. And of course, if you've got, well, we're out of time now, but if you've got any more questions for Izabela, pop to the ChannelAdvisor showcase, where you'll be able to get in touch with her and the rest of the team. You'll find some content to download. And if you want to find out more about advertising, that is definitely the place to go. And we've got a 15-minute break coming up now before the next session. So jump straight across to ChannelAdvisor showcase, or Miracle if you want to find out more about marketplaces. But Izabela, I just want to thank you so much for joining us again today. It's always a pleasure, and you always have so much information to share. And as I said at the beginning of the session, this session will be available to watch on demand in a couple of days' time. So if you've missed anything, you'll be able to go back and take some notes again. So thank you so much, Izabela.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you so much to the Tame Bay team for making this possible. I've definitely had fun, and see you around at the expo. Thank you.